All right, everybody, welcome to Good News in Parks. We are so excited to have you here at the show, which was created for park and recreation professionals and advocates, where we can connect you with top directors to share ideas, best practices, and of course, good news. I'm Anne Marie Spencer, and together with my co-host Jody Adams, we are honored and humbled to help support each other in this amazing industry. We continue to learn from you, and as you know, your feedback and participation guides our future show content. Today, our theme is communication and collaboration, and we're excited to get started and discuss these important aspects of success and good news. So please enjoy our hour and 15 minutes together, and as always, we ask you to take part in our polls, our post-show surveys, and use the question and answer box at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask questions for the question and answer session at the end of the show. Jody, we've got another amazing panel. Let's meet them.
Oh, I cannot wait. This is going to be a great show today. I just want you all to know I'll be covering some national news in just a minute, but let's get to the introductions. First of all, Darrel Crittendon. I can just tell you, he's the director of City of Norfolk, Virginia Recreation Park and Open Space Department. Darrel's also a fellow member of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration. He's also a past head judge of the Gold Medal Awards program. Wow. Congratulations on your department, Darrel, being recognized as a 2019 Gold Medal Awards finalist. Welcome to the show, Darrel.
Thank you, Jody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ah, you bet. Stacey Laird Dicke. Oh, we are so happy to have you, Stacey. You're the director of City of Braunfels, Texas Parks and Recreation Department. You're a fellow member of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration. You're also a CAPRA commissioner. What a job, big. Council of Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies. And again, congratulations on your department being recognized as a 2020 Gold Medal Awards finalist. Yeah. Oh, wow. The announcement in a couple of weeks. Here we go. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Yep, we're on pins and needles for next week.
I bet you are. Bill Foelsch. Bill, Director of Township Morris, New Jersey Parks and Recreation Department, current Treasurer of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration, past Board of Trustees for the NRPA, National Recreation Park Association, and he's also the retired Director of New Jersey Parks and Recreation Association. Bill, how many more jobs could you have? Welcome, Bill.
Not going to count them all, Jody, but thank you, Jody, very much. And Anne-Marie, thank you so much for organizing all this. Love to have more work sometime in the future, but not right now. But I do want to send my best wishes to Stacey and the New Braunfels department. Good luck with your gold medal. Hope it goes well.
Yes, and Bill, thank
really
you
important.
Again.
It's going to be a great show when we do it. Right?
It is, and Bill has served on this year's Gold Medal Committee. So Bill, thank you so much for your time. Okay, moving on to national topics. Well, we have NRPA Congress Week ahead of us. That will be October 27th through the 29th. If you have a chance, please go to nrpa.org and sign up for that conference. It's going to be a breakthrough of virtual for our nation and our National Mother Lode Association. So I would highly suggest, definitely try to view that. And then I would be remiss, I'm the current chair of the National Gold Medal Awards this year, and I can tell you it's been a lot of hard work. It's been very interesting with the alternate plans that we've had to make being all virtual. But I want to make sure that you know it's open to the general public. You can chime in and come to it through nrpa.org. It is on October 27th. And it will be at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I hope that you as a general public and obviously any of our field will join us for that special recognition of the finalists for each of the cities and counties, but also the military installations worldwide will be announcing not only the finalists, but the actual grand plaque winners. So just know you as a community, doesn't matter your size, we have categories of all sizes. You are welcome to apply for the Gold Medal Award, and that will be opening up in January of 2021. So we hope you'll do so. And then also, I would just want to say, and that Gold Medal Award is also supported by the American Academy of Park and Recreation Administration, NRPA, Musco Lighting. It's a very big team effort. And then finally, a final footnote. I've not really done this. I wanted to say to Playcore Game Time, thank you for allowing us as colleagues to have this live show. That's the only way in some cases that we can go live and talk and interact like we are going to today. So I want to thank you because, again, from a field and the heart, thank you for supporting us to get the word out about relevancy and in real time. So thank you again, Playcore. Let's go ahead and move on to the first question. Parks and Recreation Department's professional staff are doing their best to communicate externally with the community about the department's services. We know the pandemic is taking a toll on each of our staff's mental health and well-being. This is a tough question, really. How are you coping, communicating, and encouraging positive staff morale? And let's go ahead and start with you, Darrel.
Okay. Well, Jody, thanks for the question. Norfolk was in a very unique situation. I mean, we were at an all-time high. We were coming off a gold medal finalist nomination. We were nationally accredited. We had won 4 state awards. And not only that, we had also actually went through a department assessment and we came out with flying colors. We've had awards banquets. We had numerous events to honor staff, our volunteers. So everybody was feeling good. They were walking around wearing RPOS gear, as we say, with a lot of pride. And there was pride in the department, pride in the city, and just pride of being a city employee. Then COVID-19 hit us like a ton of bricks. And what happened to this department? We lost 52 full-time employees with furlough. We lost 250 part-time employees. And it was sad because a lot of employees actually were friends with a lot of these employees that were furloughed. It devastated our recreation bureau. We had 21 recreation centers and they were all shut down. Right now we have 6 restored and we're looking at opening up our 4 natatoriums in the first week of November. But what we had to do is we had to reinvent ourselves. We had to recreate what we do. We had to look at our program service and delivery and determine how we best could reach our citizens, provide the services they needed, but actually stay protected and making sure that nobody got infected with the COVID-19 virus. So a lot of virtual classes, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of meetings that were in-house, limited staff meetings where people would come in, it'd be no more than 3 people sitting in a large conference room. One time we had that conference room packed with 27 full-time staff. Wow. But I think the biggest thing I've done myself, even pre-COVID, I would go out to job sites. If our parks and forestry crews were working, I'd stop by, watch what they're doing, tell them they're doing a great job, sometimes even bring Gatorade. But I don't know if they'll let me do this anymore. I used to operate the bucket truck. And I used to have a great time in the bucket truck. I love being in that bucket truck. And then during the fall and winter months, I go out, plant a couple of street trees with some of our tree crews. But I'm a very personal director. So I like to make calls. I have random phone numbers. I'll call employees just to see how their day's going and just to say hi to them. The other times I'll go out again to the different workstations just to say hi. Make sure I practice social distancing, but I want them to know that I care. And even our employees that have been furloughed, I still send them notes, check on them, because hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of our team back. But just a lot of personal communication, making sure you're still visible and letting people know that you care.
You know, Darrel, I am so happy to hear this response. Again, we don't practice the response or anything. The bottom line is we're just people. And it's so great. It really doesn't matter our positions. We are together in the field. And yeah, there's a title there, but really what you just shared with our audience and our colleagues is so important that we keep that communication and interaction so real and person to person. Great job, Darrel.
Thank you.
Stacey, give us your input on this.
All right, thank you. If any of my staff are on the call, they're now hiding the keys to the bucket truck. That's a great idea. So we have some really amazing managers in our department, and I think that the key for our positive staff morale through this whole thing has really been because of their constant attention and contact with the staff. We were pretty fortunate through it all that we did not have any layoffs or furloughs, and actually even our seasonal employees that we had hired, we were able to keep paying them throughout our close down. So I think what staff recognized early on is that these seasonal positions, about 150 seasonal positions that we bring on, their jobs were not going to be the same jobs that we hired for last summer. So everybody got moved around in a variety of ways. But our managers stayed in very close contact with their staff. They employed a lot of new techniques, if you will, that a lot of Zoom trainings, some Instagram and Facebook Live question and answers for people that were interested in working for us. Usually we have some pretty major job fairs that we attend, so those all went virtual and were quite successful. They use the Band app to share pictures and videos and stay in contact with staff throughout the summer. In our golf division, I want to point out things were a little bit different. While everything else was shut down, golf was not. And they've actually seen record, in the history of our golf course, record months for the number of rounds that they've done. And that's not unusual for golf courses right now. I know that's happening everywhere. So they were very busy and had their hands full keeping up with all of those players. But they were just excited to be at work, and I think they felt really proud that they were able to offer a service to the community, a safe place for folks to get out and be active. So that was great. And then just overall, again, staff making an effort to pop in and check in and see how people are doing. We gave out a lot of snacks because who doesn't love free food? So if you're going to show up with a pizza or some ice cream or something. And with all of that, we made it through our summer.
Stacey, that's so important because, again, you're showing appreciation to your staff. And that has to be rewarding that they have been able to provide that service still. One of your colleagues, but also your board chair, Joe Turner, I'm so happy he is involved with you all because, of course, Joe is the retired director of Houston, Texas. Right. But I got to tell you, you really stayed on the front line from day one. You were a real hands-on director, he said, that immediately you went to the front line, and that's kudos to you. So, Stacey, way to go. Way to be right in there. Bill, I have been watching your department, and I've enjoyed watching what all you still have accomplished. You have a smaller department, but you have a mighty department. And I say that to you with love. But Bill, tell us about your endurance here of your communication, but also your morale and just keeping all your staff up.
Well, probably the most challenging period of time for all park and recreation directors, regardless of the size of departments. And I do really feel for the departments that had to go through layoffs and furloughs. Darrel, your department, just heartbreaking the way that has had to go. I think as a smaller department, perhaps we were a little bit more resilient and a little closer to some of the decision makers and funding deciders. Plus, we had, over the years, put away sort of a rainy day fund, which we were able to draw upon in a trust account. So that helped us a little bit. But like most departments, we had made all the plans to have a full spring and summer. We had released our brochures just about a week before the COVID hit with all those great things that we were going to do. But we quickly saw that we were becoming at least for the spring, a virtual department. So we switched. We felt very bad about loss of senior services. We spent some time with our staff, and they were bought into this very well, doing direct outreach to our senior members of our club, so they felt that they weren't disconnected from their community. We did quite a bit of providing of masks, and we did drop-offs to them. So some of our staff ended up changing roles. I think we've mentioned that before. We thought messaging was one of the most important things that we could do about our future. While we all understood the pandemic was changing the way we were doing business immediately, we were really reaching out to not only our own programmers and programs and instructors, but we were reaching out to those cooperative groups that we work with, particularly the youth sports groups, to try to keep them, support them where we could. Most of them decided that there wasn't going to be a spring season, so we moved through that. The staff continued to work through it and see a high level of stress, not only on their own side about what was the future, but how they were going to react to community stress. Our governor was giving out executive orders about closures and changes, some of which we found to be contradictory. But our staff pulled together, kept a positive attitude that we were going to be able to essentially reestablish ourselves as a summer recreation provider of with both pools, playgrounds, and sports. And they really pulled together. It's easier as a small staff to reach out directly and keep that communication open. So I do think that in talking to many of my fellow recreation directors around the state and around the country, the small departments seem to have the ability to do a little bit more balance, if you will, keeping their programs alive. Of course, all of this had to be turned into a proposal to our governing body. We gave them our best outlook for what we were going to be facing financially. They felt the services were critical. They were very happy with the services provided, so that was the positive. And I think when they finally said yes, that really provided the lift for the staff. And
Absolutely.
of course, we mentioned, there was a lot of people in our parks and we had to respond to them.
Well, again, communication is coming out loud and clear from all of you. And that's what this is about, is communication, collaboration. But the main thing, all three of you have stayed, and great advisement on staying close to your staff, even sometimes one-on-one. So way to go, you guys. Let's go to question number 2. Okay. How is your department recruiting, retaining, and collaborating with individual volunteer and volunteer groups? Part 2. How are you using these volunteer services, and are your volunteers going through special training during the pandemic? Now, a lot of that sounds logic, but we kind of need to know a little more detail. How are you addressing some of this with your volunteers? Because we know we have to have volunteers and we can't do it alone. So Stacey, let's start off with you.
Okay. Well, our use of volunteers has been a little bit all over the place compared to our normal operations. Back at the golf course, we have a large contingency of volunteers that we use for our marshals and our starters. And we actually haven't been using them since the pandemic started, just mostly because of the age of those volunteers.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So now the staff there has stayed in touch with those volunteers because they're family to them. So they're staying in touch with them, and I know the volunteers are ready to come back when things slow down a little bit, but we're kind of keeping them on hold for now. We've had a lot of volunteers still in the park, particularly at our nature center. They had over 600 hours of volunteer labor this year. We have a strong relationship with Texas State University, which is just up the road from us in San Marcos, Texas. And so we were able to help several students with their internships. Most internships got canceled this spring and summer. But since we're close, we were able to work with them. And so they came out and helped at the Nature Center with gardening and running programs and things. We have kept our volunteers that regarding any special training, we just individual conversations with them about what they're going to be doing and what kind of protocols we need in place. We really have been working with either individuals working by themselves or maybe a small group of 2 or 3 people. And then, whether they need their face mask or they're going to be socially distanced far enough apart to not have to do the face mask, dealing with the park guest as well. But we have been able to have those volunteers in the park again, help with gardening and trail maintenance and even cleaning some of our cemetery headstones.
Wow.
Yeah, so kind of catching up on things that wouldn't normally be
Unique.
Yeah, so it's been great. So we're really thankful for our volunteers.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, make sure I'm not muted, but we tend to be, as a small organization, and we tend to be more staff-driven. And I say that with the understanding that most recreation in our community is actually driven through volunteers with organized groups that we work directly with. So that said, we did make a special effort with volunteers. We have at least 3 advisory boards that we deal with directly, citizen-based advisory boards. Again, messaging was key to them. We spent a lot of time telling them where we were going with our programming, where we were going with our facilities, and exactly what their role might be in that. And while not trying to dwell on the finances, to understand that there were challenges that every agency was facing right now. And we were not alone in that, because we spent a lot of time communicating around our state with other professionals and how they were doing. So we passed that on. Probably our main use of volunteers during the COVID, we had some tremendous trails work done by volunteers who had the time, either retired or scouts and other young people who wanted to work on our trail system. And I just had a tremendous volunteer effort by our community garden volunteers with the, unfortunately one of our key people was COVID positive and struggled with the pandemic disease, but many other gardeners stepped up as volunteer, and that's a critical and a newer service for us. So we're really super proud of that. On the staff side, in terms of training, we continually were listening to volunteers. We listened to our governor every day. We went to webinars. We kept as much communication going and shared that with our advisory committees. And then the culmination, probably almost the entire month of June, we were working with a return to sports provision from our state health department and our governor that really required us to train and work with our local youth sports providers and adult sports providers too in COVID-19 protocols, how they could go out and start bringing sports back to the community. And that was a huge effort, and that's where we really directed a lot of our training for volunteers.
Oh, that's great, because everything from individual to group. So thank you for sharing that. Darrel.
Well, Jody, I want to say thank you to our military personnel, all those that are serving through active duty and those that are retired. In Hampton Roads, we have a large contingency of military installations, and with the U.S. Navy actually being prominent in Norfolk. So we have 8 public cemeteries. We have over close to 250,000 city trees that we maintain. The U.S. Navy's been very good to us. Like Stacey had mentioned earlier, they come into our cemeteries, they clean headstones, re-erect headstones. They actually do a lot of string trimming, and I know Stacey knows this as well. At one time, because we had a shortage of staff, we were using Roundup around a lot of the grave sites because string trimming is so tedious and it's so time consuming. So what we had to do was we wanted to make sure we brought in a volunteer group, and the U.S. Navy's come in with string trimmers so they can weed eat around those headstones and around those grave sites to make it stay green and actually make it still look good. The other thing is we have a lot of crepe myrtles in the city of Norfolk. We don't allow power tools, and you have to have a certificate from our city forester saying that you can do the work on those crepe myrtles, and we allow them to get the the basil sprouts off using hand tools, and they'll go throughout the city. We train people up, these volunteers, that remove basil sprouts from crepe myrtles. We also have them doing cleanup work around our rec centers, restoring beds around our rec centers, landscaping beds. We have numerous community gardens, and something we're looking at now as virtual classes, having young Marines and sailors actually read to youth over virtual classes, because we have a lot of mentoring and tutorial programs, but because you can't do a lot of face-to-face interaction now, I was like, hey, let's do some virtual reading to the kids. And that has worked. We're looking at virtual math classes. We have a lot of young Marines and sailors that are really astute with mathematics, some of the new math that I didn't have when I was in school. And they're very good at actually teaching these young people. I mean, kids are taking algebra now almost like in 4th grade. I didn't take it until 10th grade.
I know. True. I understand.
So we have a lot of human resources around that can provide a lot of services. And in this time of need, we need all the people we can to help deliver service and deliver quality services to our citizens.
Well, all three of you, it's very heartwarming to know how creative you've been, because again, these questions that we're working through today are all from our audience. So we're all in this together, and you giving them suggestions of how you're using them, how you're working even one-on-one on some of these groups or individuals is so important. So again, thank you, because folks out there, these words of wisdom, as you can see, we do just about everything anymore in our field, whether it's cemeteries, libraries, you name it. We're into a lot of different things besides programming of your typical recreation programs. The other thing that came through is not only the trails. We all know trails ended up ranking #1 in most cases. And then of course the over usage in some cases of our parks. So again, great job, you guys. Way to use those volunteers and keep them apprised of everything. Communication, communication, communication. All right, we want to engage you as our attendees. So Anne Marie, take it away. It's poll time.
Absolutely. And I want to remind everybody to use the Q&A to ask questions, so that we'll have those at the end of the show. Stacey, you're getting a lot of comments here from fellow colleagues that are wishing you well on the nomination. So just wanted to pass that along as well. So let's start with our poll question. We are talking about communication. So we want to know from you, what are your top 3 methods of communicating with your community and park users? And this is multiple choice. We want you to choose your top 3. So is it direct email? Is it through your own park's website? Is it through the city township's website? Is it social media? Through Zoom or other meeting platforms? Email, newsletters, programs, or guides? Printed newsletters, programs, or guides? Signage and billboards, or partnering with other agencies? And I will tell you, the voting is furious. I know you guys can't see the action going here, but those numbers are shifting and changing as everybody weighs in. So we want to give you some time to go ahead and do that. That's great. I mean, communication is so important right now, so that people understand what is the state, you know, of what's going on, what places in the park can they visit, what's open, what's closed. And so we know there's been a lot of real clever and unique ways to communicate out there. So looks like everybody has voted. We're going to go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. And let's go ahead and share that with you. So look at that. Social media has really emerged as strong. That's fantastic. After that, it looks like your park's websites, no surprise there, email newsletters, some direct emails, city town webs, and then a little bit on the other. So electronic is the word here, right? Everybody is using electronic media in every way they can. So we have a second poll question here that we want to share with you. And again, panelists, you can vote as well. And that question is this: we have increased, and this is you speaking, or plan to increase communication around, and I want you to choose all the topics that apply here. So you're increasing or have planned to increase communications around marketing online and virtual events, paid or fee-based programs, events, and classes, sharing updated COVID guidelines, helping senior populations adapt to technology, gaining consumer confidence at rec centers and built environments, promoting health and wellness, after school or special programming, inclusion and racial equity, raising support for and securing funding, or obtaining data and feedback from park users. And again, it's always so interesting to watch these multiple choice questions as you guys vote and see how it sort of affects the questions and the answers that are coming through and the ranking of those answers. So it looks like you're still voting. A lot of there's 10 answers there. That's a lot more than we usually have, but there's so many different ways that we've heard from you guys on, you know, how you're increasing your communications and what things that you want to be able to communicate about. And so we want to make sure that we cover all of the popular answers that that come in there so we can get a really good consensus. And again, we take these very seriously. All of these polls, you know, Jody and I and the team look at them and we formulate a lot of what you see in future shows based on what you guys tell us. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So let's go ahead and end this one in 3, 2, 1. And we'll share the results with you guys. Marketing online and virtual events is the lead, but interesting, not by much. Promoting health and wellness, that's an obvious one that came in second. Promoting classes, sharing updated COVID guidelines, that's certainly no surprise. Programming, inclusion and racial equity, certainly an important topic, especially more so today as people become more aware of those issues throughout the country. So really good answers there. So thank you again for taking care of that. And don't forget, please, to ask us some questions. We've got a couple really good ones already. So we usually have time for 2 or 3, and we look forward to hearing what your questions are. So Jody, let's get back to our panel.
Absolutely. Ready to go on question number 3. What innovations or adjustments have you made in your department park operations area? Have park ambassadors, have park monitors been used to add to your facility and your park staffing, or you're moderating your parks because of so many people in the parks today? But also, how are you educating and again, following COVID-19 CDC guidelines, or is your city, county, township have special ordinances? Now, some of them do, most everyone does, but we'd really like to hear your view. How are you working with your park operations and your monitoring? And are there like park ambassadors or monitors? Let's go ahead and start with Bill. Bill, you're
There we
muted.
go. Yep, we're better. We're back.
I love this slide.
Of course, as soon as I went to unmute, it just went to the Zoom screen. So, got it. We're fortunate, I guess, from the very start that as we looked at government services, because we do have our own parks operation in this small department. Not everybody has that in our state. Often you're working with DPW. In our case, we were fortunate to have our own, but we were considered an essential service. So we kept our workforce in place with only minor days off, but paid days off for them. So in order to reduce exposures, sometimes we allowed them to be off. But so as an essential service, we pretty much had our park operations staff in place. And I think I've mentioned that our recreation administrative staff pretty much continue to come in too. We saw immediate impact on our visitation to our open space facilities and our trails. And we also note in our community that we're fortunate to have a very extensive trail system run by our county park agency.
Awesome.
And they interpreted some of their closure requirements differently. So when they closed their trails, our parks got hit even more. And we also had issues with problems with walkers, hikers, and riders on the roads that as soon as the county trails were closed. So we were inundated with physical activity pursuits out on the roads and in the parks. So that fortunately didn't last that long. And as soon as we had them back open, more normal situation arrived to us. One of the things we talked about very quickly into this is as our schools closed because of COVID and the students went into a virtual environment, our police department had special resource officers assigned to every one of our elementary schools and to our middle school. The high school is actually held by another municipal entity, but the school resource officers were either going to go on unemployment or come to work for the township. And so we put them to work in our parks.
Oh, wow.
They became our Parks
Great
Patrol
idea.
where we never had that before. And I really do credit our township administrator for laying out that option to us and support from our governing body to do so. So we didn't have to pay them unemployment contributions to those officers. They stayed as active presence in our park system and in our eyes and ears. So that was a tremendous boon to us. And we did mention that around a number of our communities. Not every community has resource officers like that, but we were able to use that. Probably the biggest impact on what we had to add to is in our aquatics operations. We run 2 seasonal summer pool operations. Our guidelines required that we not only increase sanitation, which had its own impacts on personnel and the amount of time we spent doing disinfection and repeat disinfection and essentially ongoing sanitation to every surface. But we also had to put social distancing ambassadors in place by specific. So we had added a new title at the last minute, social distancing ambassadors, and we hired a number of them. We had 8 of them, and they were the ones that were on the deck. They were on the patios. They were making sure that people were masking appropriately and also keeping their distance as we spread them out along our pool grounds. And they even tried to keep social distancing while people were in the water. A little harder topic for us, but so they were really very, very positive for us. We also had impacts on our summer programming where we were allowed to create pods of children that could stay together for the entire summer, which we did, and a lot more strict sanitation requirements. But through all of that, we did add staff, even in the face of less revenue coming in. We just wanted to give the best summer experience that we could. And some of those same programs are still ongoing in terms of sanitation for special events and things like that. So,
Wow, Bill. You know, Bill, I have a question. Now, did you put those monitors or those extra monitoring systems, did you put those people through special training by chance?
It was pretty much on the fly, I'll be honest with you, Jody,
Okay.
that, you know, our school resource officers all have special training in interacting with young people to begin with. So they weren't as key, but yes, we did with our social distancing ambassadors and with our sanitation group. They all had their own orientation and training program conducted by our staff. So they understood the expectations for the summer.
Great collaboration. Very innovative. Thank you very much, Bill, for sharing that at all different levels within your program. Yes, no kidding. Darrel.
Yes. Jody, we have 8 miles of public beach that we're responsible for in the summer. And we have 3 public beaches that compose that 8 miles of public beach. You know, with the furloughs we had, we were reduced down without part-time lifeguards to just 12 full-time lifeguards. So this summer we were only able to man 1 public beach, and we had to leave 2 unmanned. But the hits that we took in our recreation bureau with all of our recreation center staff, we were able to reinvent them and reprogram them with a beach ambassador program. So those staff that normally were deployed to recreation centers were out on the beach during the beach season, and they were able to talk about COVID-19, safety precautions, upcoming programs in the department, and just overall hand out well-being and health information to our citizens, as well as reinforce beach rules, social distancing, and just actually even talk about our outdoor education programs as well. So having to reinvent staff through a crisis and actually putting them in an environment that they normally don't work in, I think that was great for our staff, and it was really tremendous for the department. But what it also let people know is that we're still trying to make efforts to provide quality programs for their well-being and their health. So I think the biggest thing is our Beach Ambassador program. Also, what we've been able to do too is we had people that were furloughed from other departments. We even looked at employing staff from some of our sister departments to work in Parks and Urban Forestry. And what happens, as you know, if you have somebody that has to be quarantined because of COVID, it impacts the whole work unit. So you could lose 2 crews or 3 crews at any given time for 14 days. So we were always scrambling, trying to find people to man up on those lawnmowers so that we can continue to cut on our 12 to 14 day mowing cycles. So we were able to use some of the furloughed staff from other departments to assist with that. But the main thing is reinventing yourself, making sure you're flexible, and always making sure that you have resources that you can actually pull from. And that's some of the stuff we had to do this summer.
Wow, innovative, collaborative, again. What a great idea of sharing staff with other furloughed departments. So smart. But kudos to you again, because that's super innovative. And again, they're trained. What a great approach to immediately dealing with the quarantine and someone being positive, and then having to still produce that service at the highest level. Great job, Darrel.
Thank you.
Okay, Stacey, wind us up on this one.
All right. Well, right when the shutdown started here in Texas, which was in March for us, well, first we were underway with our spring break camp, and it was during that week of spring break that Texas decided schools would not go back to campus. And so we had the longest spring break camp in history. It lasted for 12 months.
I bet.
Yeah, so we had our kids from the public that were in the camp that had signed up for our regular spring break camp. Most of those kids stayed with us afterwards when learning went virtual. But then we also provided at no charge for the city essential city employees who needed care for their children in order to come to work. So it was great. Our staff did a phenomenal job, just like they always do. So
yeah,
real positive. We made some adjustments with our park operations staff. I'm sure similar to what a lot of other departments did. We put them on shifts, so they did not all arrive at work at the same time. So they came in shifts and clocked in, got their equipment and got into their vehicles, so that they were in smaller groups. And so those shifts worked throughout the day. We had only one person per vehicle for a while, and then but they had to have their mask on when they were in vehicles together. And we really had not put that much thought into how people were getting in and out of vehicles before.
Yeah.
Sanitized and wiped down afterwards. And of course we had schedules for sanitizing the restrooms and the playgrounds out in the parks. Our playgrounds and restrooms were closed. We had started sanitizing and then we closed them down, but then they reopened in June. And so we picked those sanitizing schedules back up. Much like what Darrel did, we repurposed a lot of our seasonal staff. So we're very fortunate. We hire over 50 seasonal park rangers, and they really are our park ambassadors every year. We're a big tourist destination here in New Braunfels. We have 2 rivers that are known around the state and even in other states for tubing. And so we are geared up for them on a normal basis, but the rivers did close down. All of our river parks closed in late June. Our governor ordered those river outfitter businesses to be closed. They were just seeing too large a crowds. And so we had all of those park rangers and lifeguards that we sent out to other areas to work. So of course they were our park ambassadors, as they always are. But we had park rangers assisting park operations and daily duties, mowing and weed eating and landscape maintenance. They assisted at our paddle boats and our miniature golf course to help with crowd control and traffic flow. We had aquatic staff that went over to our planning department and
Awesome.
they reviewed applications for small business loans. We had some smart, you know, some of our managers, they're college students, they were business students in college. So it was a great experience for them and a real help to the folks over there. We had staff go to our building department and do data entry for building permits, which we set a record for the number of building permits issued this summer. Go figure.
Wow.
So we had employees everywhere that you can imagine. And I think it was Bill that mentioned, you know, of course, the use on the trails was so high. We've never seen as many people on trails. So I laugh about that our park rangers had their work cut out for them. We had a lot of first-time park visitors that weren't familiar with the rules and the things that you could and couldn't do. Right when the shutdown started, we had someone bring on a leash to walk their pet on one of our trails, which was literally a longhorn steer.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was a first. And park rangers got that taken.
Hello, Texas.
Wow. Well, I tell you what is so amazing, you know, Stacey, you brought this up earlier in the show. I just want to thank you as a current faculty member at a university. What I've seen is interns, and you're talking about the students, they've been a valuable asset during this. And I know the department here that I used to be the director of, Springfield Greene County, they actually made them a part of the essential staff. And can you imagine how they're going to enter the field at a high level of knowledge and education to deal with this? So I just applaud you all. At any time when you're bringing in everything from teenagers or young professionals out of our colleges, universities, thank you for doing that, because that is our future. And they're already going to be so advanced when it comes to dealing with emergency crisis like this. So that is really great. But I have to admit, the steer is a first for us on the show. And that's pretty creative, to lead by a leash, a steer. So I'm glad we have this, Anne Marie, on demand, because I hope a lot of people watch the show to hear that one. Thank you, Tree.
I want to know what kind of leash you have to lead us.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, strong
A
one.
rope.
That's right. Absolutely. Awesome.
Well, thank you all for this input, but I can tell you right now, we're going to shift to one of the most rewarding parts of the show. And this is about recognizing your great staffs and leaders. And it can be everything from the front line to you name it. So Anne Marie, take it away. And let's hear from the directors.
Absolutely. Let's do this. This is our absolute favorite part of the show, and it's called Good News in Parks, about great people. And, you know, I think everybody that we have ever had on the show agrees that none of us can do anything alone. You know, it's our teams and our team members that make amazing things happen. And so we always want to give an opportunity for our panelists to recognize somebody on their team. And so that's what this segment is all about. So let's go ahead and get going. And Darrell, we're going to start with you. Tell us about Stephen.
Yes, I want to introduce everybody to our Bureau Manager of Parks and Forestry Operations, Stephen Patton. Stephen came from us from the Public Works Department, where he was the Stormwater Operations Manager. He was looking for new opportunities. He felt he had some skill sets that he had not had a chance to employ. So he came to Parks and Recreation. And as you can see from the picture, Stephen is very, very hands-on. I mean, he does tasks that he would assign to himself to do, and these are the same tasks that staff will do. He'll work out with a crew. You can find him on a lawnmower. You may see him actually pruning a tree. You may see him aerating a field. Stephen is not afraid to roll his hands up and get dirty, roll his sleeves up and get dirty. But I think the biggest thing about Stephen is he brought a level of consistency, leadership, and also he's a people's person. He can communicate with anybody. Staff feel comfortable with talking to him. They feel like their concerns are heard, and he will address any concerns that are brought to him. And just from the business side, we're looking at actually outsourcing some of our properties, our public properties. Stephen is actually spearheading this effort to look at outsourcing maybe some of our public school grounds, looking at some of our wastewater treatment sites, some of our retention ponds. But Steve has taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and he's reinventing our parks and forestry operations. And he's doing all this by being a team player, being committed, highly dedicated, and always comes to work very enthused.
That's great. Thank you, Darrell. And thank you, Stephen, for all that you do for the industry and for Norfolk. And you can tell, I've never seen anybody look so happy with a weed eater.
I know.
You can tell he's a great guy. Thank you so much, Darrell.
Okay.
Let's move on. Stacey, tell us about Lupe.
All right. So we're very fortunate. We have a great team of managers and team members from the bottom up here in New Braunfels. But I want to recognize Lupe Cervantes. She is our administrative assistant here, and she goes above and beyond for our team every day. She really makes our world go round here in New Braunfels. She doesn't just care about the staff, but she provides care for our staff. She knows what we need before we know we need it. She takes care of our deadlines. She knows our priorities. She knows what we procrastinate on. And most importantly, she knows what our favorite candy is. And she always makes sure she's got the candy drawer stocked well for us. She says it's our stress relief. So during the shutdown, Lupe came to the office every day along with myself and the assistant director. And she provided customer care for folks that called in and were, there were many, many questions, as you can imagine. She stayed in touch by phone with our staff. She helped us track decisions as those decisions were being made daily, sometimes changing by the hour. And she meets with every new employee in our department on their first day. So she really sets the culture of our department and gets those employees started on the right track. And because of Lupe, we're a better organization, and we're so grateful for her energy and her compassion and her professionalism.
That's awesome. Thanks, Stacey. And thanks, Lupe. I mean, that is a position that one of the toughest ones always, I think. I mean, you have to know everything about everybody, and you're keeping so many things straight and so many people on track. And so congratulations on that. And thank you again. All right, let's go ahead, Bill, and tell us about your management staff team.
Well, as a small department, you really have to work together, mesh together as a team. And this is a tremendous team for us. Almost every one of these people are new to a job within the last 2 years, and some promoted from within to come up. But our group is faced the crisis of the COVID and the planning and the responsibilities of maintaining our system without complaint, even under some of them having issues with the COVID pandemic at this point, either home or themselves or a family. So they responded to the pressure. I couldn't sing out just one, and I apologize to Jody and you, but when you have a small staff, you depend on each one of them. Every one of them answered all the questions of everybody else's job. We all basically teamed up to make this a successful summer. Our parks guys knew our pool operations, our recreation people knew our park operations, and everybody knew the recreation operation. And in the face of essentially all these COVID protocols that we had to deal with on a very short period of time, they kept their spirits up and kept their positive attitude. So I'm just thrilled with this particular team. The names are there. I wish I could spend hours talking about them all, but I did ask them in this photo, make sure they didn't take 2 or 3 steps back, because they would have been wet.
Exactly.
And taken just before we had a tremendous senior event at that pool postseason, where we finally got our seniors out for a great event. And every one of them participated in putting that event together. So I'm just very proud of them. I thank each and every one of them. plus our parks workers and our seasonal staff for their commitment to make this a great summer.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Bill. And thank you, Andrea and Tim and Alexis and Earl and Phil and Samantha. You guys are fantastic. I did want to go ahead and mention them all for you there because that's just amazing. So, all right. Well, thank you all so much. And we are going to go and start taking some audience questions. And we've got some good ones here. Before I do, I just want to say, you know, we've gotten a lot of comments here just thanking you guys for all the great advice that you've given. I think this comment from Dawn was in relation to the steer, maybe everything really gets bigger in Texas. So there's that one. So that's great, but let's get serious because I think this is a fantastic question. We've got some folks that are asking about what advice do you guys have for a small department, you know, that has minimum staff, that, you know, they're just sort of trying to hold on. What do you have advice for them to help maintain and operate when they're really in survival mode?
Any of you can answer it because you've all been there at any time.
I'll just give a quick answer to that, just from my perspective. I would say first, just do what you can. You can't do everything, not large or small departments right now. You do what you can and do it well. And secondly, just collaborate. You know, what I've seen over the last few months are some great Facebook groups that have started up, whether it's Women in Parks and Recreation or Parks and Recreation Done Right. There's one for virtual camps. And man, we have gotten some great ideas and advice, some leads from that. So I would say check those out.
I'd like to jump in on that. One of the things that I've seen over the summer is that because we're now living in this virtual Zoom world, it was easier to connect for, you know, say an hour with your colleagues without having to drive. And our association in New Jersey sponsored a lot of forums, and we jumped on forums from other places, North Texas for one, Stacey, because they did a tremendous job on the aquatics. But we didn't follow just that. We jumped on a couple of them around the country. So if you're sort of a small department, they can bring perspective to you. And I certainly recommend that they do that. My other idea is that please just keep a positive attitude. It can get you down. You're not going to win every battle of your ideas for planning, and not everything is going to pan out. But you know, you've tried to put a service out there, and you know, don't be afraid to defend the services that you provide to the public and to your decision makers. They're important services.
Okay, that's awesome.
Darrel, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, sure. When I first started my career, I had a small department, and it was just 5 full-time employees to include myself. And one thing we were able to do pre-COVID was piggyback off some of the surrounding larger departments. And they have a lot of resources, and there's always a large, big-time director that's willing to help out a little small department sometimes when it comes to joint programming. Also, even sometimes with maintenance responsibilities, because they may have a database of volunteers that are willing to cross county lines or city lines to assist just in the name of Parks and Recreation. So look for those resources. Again, tap into your YMCAs, tap into your churches as well. We have a great partnership with the YMCA. They don't have a lot of open or green space, but they have some wonderful program instructors. So we're able to use a lot of their program instructors for a lot of our instructional classes, while I provide ball fields for some of their use. And it's a great trade-off. But look at some of the larger departments to see if they can provide some assistance as well.
That's great.
You know, Anne-Marie, I'd like to comment on that if you don't mind. You know, you bring up something very valuable. You might even consider kind of starting a regional group or departments to start communication every other week, maybe even on Zoom. Again, we're so accessible now. And you know, I don't know if you feel like it. I feel like I'm a little bit more informed, like Bill alluded to. I feel more informed. So I think we've got an opportunity more than ever to help small departments around our country with what we're doing like today. But really, I think overall the field is becoming more and more informed and leaning on each other even closer. So that's a great idea on those large departments. Definitely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anne Marie. Sorry. Thank you.
That's great feedback. And Jody, you know, you can always jump in. That's great.
I know.
And I
Thank you for
actually
the
want
flexibility.
you to jump in on this next one. I want everybody to jump in on this one because I think this is a fabulous question, and the more input we can give, the better.
Mhm.
Diana wants to know, how do you de-stress and what do you share with staff to not feel so overwhelmed? That is a fantastic question.
I guess I'll go first. De-stress, do we ever do that? I don't know. I grew up in a recreation environment from my youngest days, working in parks and in the outdoor rec. The ability to be out hiking, biking, kayaking, if you will, the outdoor recreation opportunities in our country are just phenomenal. I don't know of a state that doesn't have just tremendous facilities in their state park system, county park systems, or even local that can't help refresh our spirits just by being in touch with nature. And that's the message we need to give to our young people. We have to give that to our urban neighborhoods, that it's really important to be out there in the great outdoors. So that's where de-stress comes from, I think. At least on a personal basis. And, I know most of my staff are looking for ways to get out and make sure that family connections are there when they get into the outdoor world.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll tag on to that and just say, practice what you preach. We do that hard work of making facilities available and programs available for our public to come and de-stress, and we need to take advantage of that as well. And I think one thing that we learned through the shutdown is flexibility in working schedules and working locations. It doesn't matter. And I think once our staff knew that they had support and permission to work from home, man, they worked their little hearts out, but if they had to stay home with kids, that was okay. If they had been exposed, that was okay. And I think just knowing that they have that support helped immensely.
I just want to say I'm coming down to tube in your rivers, Stacey, at some point. I'll be back. I love that area of Texas, and I'll get a tube.
You won't be disappointed.
But Jody, I would just say rotating schedules. Something we've been able to do is we actually have staff work maybe a Monday, they're off on Tuesdays, work a Wednesday, off on Thursdays.
Okay.
And you'll find the biggest stress level is wondering about their families. The guys come to work, they're worried about the health of their families, their children, their spouses, significant others. So being able to provide a working schedule where you're getting the job done, but still being able to spend time with your family during a pandemic is very helpful. And as far as my senior management team in the department and myself, we work rotating shifts as well. My assistant director and myself, if I worked from 8 to 12 in the morning, then he'd come from 12 to 4. We're never in the building at the same time.
Good idea.
And then sometimes now I've started coming in 3 days a week, and then I'm at home 2 days a week, which allows him to come into the office 2 days a week. He's at home 3 days a week. So working like that, making sure that we practice safety, make sure we're taking care of COVID measures, but also making sure we're able to take care of the mission at hand. And we've been doing that through staggered schedules and rotating schedules.
Excellent.
Jody, how about you?
Well, I've really taken this to heart. Been very careful. I am a faculty member at a university, and I got to tell you, it's been very interesting. We've been working a lot, not only in person, believe it or not, in our classrooms, but actually virtually. So we have blended classes, and I share that with the field because you will have graduates coming out that will understand blended. And it will be very interesting. And we had a discussion on this the other night in class of how we're going to program in the future. Is part of the class virtual? Is part of the class in person? It's not just a certain set way. And I think every one of you have talked about flexibility. You've talked about getting out yourself, and I'm happy to hear you taking care of yourself and being mindful of how you're approaching the work environment. Because I think sometimes, and I'm as guilty as any of you, when I was working 24/7, I didn't want to stop. The train couldn't stop because really I was so passionate and I love the field so much. And I know all three of you do. And Anne Marie, you do too. You're in the industry and you care so much. But I got to tell you, I'm happy to hear a little bit of pause of evaluation personally. So that's my view as a past and retired director, but also now in the field with our next generation. I think we are going to have a dynamic future in this field because I think we're going to be so much more informed, but educated on how to approach offering services.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I think that's where if I would answer this question, I think that's where I take my de-stress from is you control the things that you can and you let go of the things that you can't, and you learn to recognize the gifts. And, without COVID-19, would I be able to do this amazing show with you guys? I don't know the answer to that.
Good point.
But it certainly has been a gift, and being able to share and learn so much from you. And I guess that's just how I get through it, is try to look at the positive and try to help those that I work with. If they're having a tough time or a tough day, help them see the positive, because there's good days and there's bad days and we all have them. And teamwork is everything. So I do want to bring to your attention a wonderful comment from Patricia. I don't know where Patricia works, but I think we would all go to work with Patricia because she helps her staff by hitting the stomach. She bakes.
Oh, good idea.
So I get that. Another comment, someone just wanted to say, anonymous attendee, it's awesome to see you recognize and appreciate admin assistance. That warms my heart. So I think that's a wonderful comment. And then I think, Darrel, you were the one who mentioned the rotating telework, or any of the other ones of you that do the rotating schedules. Julia said that it makes it a little bit harder to find reliable childcare. So how do you deal with the rotating schedule, and also with maybe your staff member who are younger that have children that struggle with that type of a work schedule?
Well, I would say, Anne Marie, that if you have a childcare situation, a lot of times that person would have to actually telework. You wouldn't ask them to work a rotating shift or come into the office at all. I mean, this is a crisis right now, so we want to be accommodating to our employees who provide great service on a daily basis. So that might be a person that would have to stay at home and telework the whole time.
Sure.
Yeah, that certainly helped us in terms of a small, township wide. We had a lot of flexibility for individuals who could work from home. We allowed them to do that. Various staff schedules in our office where they wanted to come in a couple days a week, but they also needed to be home for childcare reasons. And the flexibility, what I think I really learned is everybody has a different situation, and we have to have empathy for all those situations.
That's right.
And our better nature is to be, we must report to work, but the reality is that it is a crisis, as Darrel said, that we need to be as flexible as possible. And I'm going to go back into my office in a few minutes, and we'll see what they say.
That is awesome. Absolutely awesome. I'll tell you, we're just continuing to get some great feedback, and kudos from the audience, who is so appreciative of you guys sharing your time and your thoughts and your energy with us today. So we do want to take a couple of minutes to tell you about our next show, which is a little bit different. We are going to a Monday show, so October 26th. We will be hosting our special edition, and we are so excited about this one. This is everything that you want to know about the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and look at this panel. We have Linda Lanterman and Eric Feldbaum with Nazorlo. Just super excited to have them and talk about their role in administering the Land and Water Conservation Fund. We have Joel Lynch from National Park Services as well, and also Kyle Simpson from the NRPA. He's their Senior Government Affairs Manager. So just a fantastic panel of folks there who pretty much between them know everything there is to know about LWCF. So we're super excited about that one. You can find the registration link, like always, by going to playcor.com/events and just searching for this event. And just a reminder for those of you who do the CEU part of this program, you receive a survey after the show that counts as your survey, as your assessment for the CEUs. So please take that survey, and once you do, that triggers your certificate of completion to come from that email that you see there, docs@email.pandadoc.com. And so once you see, if you have to whitelist, I know some of us have some pretty strong filters, so you might want to look and make sure that that email is whitelisted so that you don't have any problems with that. And with that, we're so excited. I mean, good news, guys. Again, good news.
Good news, good news, good news.
News, right?
Well, and I just, you know, Anne-Marie, we are so fortunate. I'm telling you, this show, it's all about you. It's all about our field. And I cannot thank these three panelists, you guys from think about everything heartfelt. You are the sense of our field. You shared what is really going on in your worlds and your heart and your passion. And I just can't say enough. Thank you so much, colleagues and wonderful friends. So keep knocking it out and doing great things and showing us the way, and we'll be back in touch with you three. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Thanks so much. And thank you to our studio audience as well. We are so honored that you spend an hour and 15 minutes of your very, very busy days with us. And I'm just going to share this one last suggestion because, you know, our audience is dealing with what you guys are doing as well. And I think this is a wonderful suggestion from Cheryl at San Marcos, who said that they started a pilot program just for the children of employees to come to a learning hub where they can get help from some of our recreation leaders to log in for class and such. We did not open to outside kids because we didn't want to step on the toes of the local school district, but what a great way to serve the kids from the department. So good news. I thought that was a good note to end on. So again, thank you all. And we hope to see everybody on October 26th. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Thanks, everyone. You bet.
Bye, everyone.
See you at the virtual
conference.
Have a
great day.
Yes, see you at the virtual NRPA. See you there.